A few days ago, I went to Books A Million for the first time in over 7 years. It's a place I have fond memories of, and it was so nice reliving those memories again. So why am I bringing this up? When I was there, I saw this particular thing that caught my attention, which was behind the counter, and that thing was the Retron HD. I was surprised to find it at a Books A Million out of all places, but nonetheless, I was interested and decided to get it. So what is the Retron HD? The Retron HD is essentially a clone system of the NES, and unlike the NES Classic Edition, there is no emulation here. This is using real hardware that is replicating the original NES. This also means there are no built-in games, but instead, you're going to have to use your own cartridges. Clone systems are nothing new, but the Retron HD has a major benefit over many other clone systems, and that's the fact that it can output your NES games to glorious HD. The original NES can output composite, which in my opinion, it looks alright, but the problem with the original NES is the pins bend over time, and it's not very reliable. The one I have is a top loader, and that fixed the pin issue, but only supports RF video, which honestly is pretty terrible, especially on a modern TV. I have a pretty decent collection of NES games, but I haven't really played them ever since I upgraded to a modern TV. Finding a system that could play them in HD and was only $40, you can even get it cheaper, was appealing. But the question is, how does a Retron HD perform, and is it worth getting? Time to find out. The design of the Retron HD is like a mix of the original NES and the top loader. Has the gray and black theme of the original, but is way smaller and loads cartridges on top. Not only is there HDMI, but there's also AV, which is nice if you have a CRT TV, so that means your light gun games are going to work again. There's also a switch to switch it from 4.3 to 16.9, and if you're going to use 16.9, you're probably the kind of person who records vertically. The controller it comes with is actually really good. It may look weird at first, but it's actually pretty comfortable to use and really responsive. You can always use most regular NES controllers if you don't like the controller it comes with, and my regular controller and NES Advantage worked fine, but I did have a problem with the NES Max for some reason, so you're going to have to keep that in mind. But how do the games play? Since it's using hardware, games play really well with no lag. I tested a bunch of games out, and they all worked great. You can even play PAL games. There's a switch on the bottom to switch from NTSC to PAL, but this only impacts the speed because PAL games usually play faster on an NTSC console. So yeah, some games might still sound a little weird. While there's not very many, the NES has some great games that were exclusive to Europe, such as this awesome Mario Bros. Port. Not only does it look more like the arcade version, but the controls are fixed and so much better. Still baffles me why Nintendo would use the black box version instead of this when re-releasing it. I tried 2 unlicensed games, one being Tengen's Pac-Man and the other being a multi-cart, and both ran flawlessly. And to my surprise, Famicom games will work with an adapter. Again, this is using hardware, not emulation, so everything should work fine. And with the added benefit of HD, it really makes these older games feel fresh again. So far so good. But there are some problems with the system. Some of the colors look off on the Retron HD. A good example is in Mario 3, Mario has a white face instead of his usual skin tone. And in Panic Restaurant, the chef looks like a ghost. It's not too big of an issue, but it's worth being pointed out. But as with most clone systems, the sound is a problem. Here's what Super Mario Bros. Should sound like. And this is what it sounds like on the Retron HD. Unlike the AtGames Genesis, which has such bad sound quality it ruined the console for me, this isn't horrible by any means, it's just a little bit off. But it's off enough to bring it to attention, and if you're a purist, the sound quality might be a major issue for you. Overall, the Retron HD does a good job of playing NES games at an affordable price. Considering it's only around $30 to $40 and will play all your NES games in HD, I highly recommend it if you have some NES games you want to play lying around on a modern TV, or if you're a more casual player. But if you're really serious about the NES, you're going to have to keep in mind that the sound is off and some of the colors are off, and that could be a deal breaker for you. But personally, I really like the Retron HD, and I think it does a great job playing my NES and Famicom games in glorious HD. As I mentioned before, the sound is a little bit off and a slight issue for me, but it's not atrocious enough for me to hate the system. The positives really do outweigh the negatives for me, which is why I'll be using the Retron HD from now on to play my NES games. Anyways, thanks for watching and keep calm and Dada on.